jump back in with some bite down boxing. I am on the move today, so I did my morning check in, getting in some thoughts on this past weekend, Spence and you guys fight, and some other things that I talked. Oh, Connor Ben, and I got into another later in the discussion and couldn't figure out where we were with the boxing schedule. I used to do videos, and I was uh, on top of it with putting the schedules out there and talking about the upcoming fights and talking about the things that we do know. I've said it before, I don't really specialize in the unknown unknowns and the things that I can't verify, the things that I don't see. You know, I don't get involved in much of that. Um, Videos, they don't do too well. Nobody cares. People want drama and controversy, far out theories, and all that type of stuff. But there is a big fight on the calendar this weekend in boxing, which is Tyson Fury and Dillian White. Not a ton else on that card. I did see some commercials during the NBA playoff games. I did see one or two ads for that. So we'll see. I already told you, I'm only buying one pay-per-view this year, most likely. If it's 2022 or 2023, I'm only buying one pay-per-view. That's Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford. That's it. So I'll get into Fury-Whyte in a second. Jumping back to Errol Spence Jr. and your Danish, you guys, this past weekend, I was thinking through it, and I couldn't get excited about that fight. I said that you guys is a solid fighter. I love his story, the fact that he had the defect from Cuba, the fact that he walked away from the sport and came back, but to see a guy with 3 or 4 losses on his record, and I don't hold it against you. But to me, that's somebody that's learned how to lose on some level. And somebody that's learned how to lose is just not going to defeat Errol Spence Jr., in my humble opinion, and was not going to be him. And then basically, like, I was some you guys up as a No-Shine Moreno, who played for the Denver Broncos after starring at the University of Georgia. I don't know a whole lot about running back techniques and all of that type of stuff, but one thing that I thought I saw about No-Shine Moreno, like I said, after having a standout collegiate career, in the pros, he couldn't make anybody miss. He couldn't get through the first level and make the second level defenders miss and extend runs. And so, his yards per carry was probably in the mid 2s or whatever, but he just was kind of one-dimensional. And he had 2 or 3 years as the Broncos, as the main back for the Broncos, but he just never became a big contributor. And that's how I kind of rated you guys. He's a big dude. He's tough as hell. He's going to show up prepared, but his toolbox is a little limited. So, and again, and speaking on Spence, from what I see from the highlights, what I'm looking forward to checking out the replay when they show it, if they do show it, I don't even know if they do that anymore. I just thought it was a performance that cemented him as the big fish that he claims to be, and that many people thought he was. And it's a good lead-in, to the fight that we all want to see. And he even said that, this is the fight that the media wants to see. That's the fight that the fans want to see. And I'm coming for them MFing belts or whatever. So we'll see what happens from that. Jumping ahead to this week. Yeah, not a lot going on the schedule other than Tyson Fury and Dillian White. I don't have to go back to my personal stance on whether or not Tyson Fury is really pay-per-view. It is what it is. Looking at the matchup, though, I just don't see how I can go with Dillian White other than having a puncher's chance. And it's the heavyweight division. But with Tyson Fury coming out of the trilogy, or at least the second fights with Deontay Wilder and everything that we saw play out in that, I don't see how I could give Dezurn-Cederoos a large chance of winning the fight. I just don't. Dezurn-Cederoos is just coming out of, I believe 3 fights ago, might have been Marius Watts or Wack, the big Norwegian cat or whatever. You know, he wasn't box office or exceptional in that outing. He's not a great body guy. He never comes into the fights looking in great shape, excellent shape. He's never really light on his feet. He's not a big volume or big output guy. Very few heavyweights are. Then he goes up against Povetkin. We know he gets stopped by Povetkin in a fight that he was winning and doing well in, but he gets stopped in the 4th or 5th round or something. He comes back, stops Povetkin. Okay, cool. But I just think Tyson Fury, with the size, Tyson Fury's boxing ability, all that extra shit that Tyson Fury does, I don't see Dezurn-Cederoos being successful against that. He hasn't, and I've heard about the training camp incident where he supposedly knocked Tyson Fury out cold or whatever. I didn't even bother looking that up. It is what it is. But like I said, we talking about the Fury post Deontay Wilder. I don't see any way that White can make Fury uncomfortable. He can't speed him up. He's not a devastating puncher, in my opinion. He's a good puncher. He also had the fight with Oscar Rivas that he wasn't lights out. So I think it could end up being a good scrap. Again, Fury isn't necessarily a one-hitter quitter type dude. But Tyson Fury is comfortable as hell. He's confident as hell. I don't really buy into a lot of the retirement talk. I'm gonna come in over 300 pounds. I don't really get into none of that. Could it be a stoppage? I don't know. I think it's gonna be a pretty interesting fight. Again, and I got him as my winner, but for a pay-per-view card, I haven't even looked into the price of it. The only other name that I know on there is David Adelaide. And Adelaide is about 8-0. He's a UK heavyweight. Bigger guy, muscular guy. Another dude learning on the job. Very unpolished. Figuring things out. But you can check him out. Tommy Fury is on there. I wouldn't waste my time with him. Isaac Lowe is on there. I wouldn't waste my time with him. I'll be doing something else this weekend, and I just catch the highlights on Instagram, and I see what the outcome is. But that's just where I am with it. We'll see what happens there. I did just check this interview out with Franchon, pivoting into some women's boxing. Check this interview out with Franchon Cruz Dezurn on the Sirius XM boxing show. She fights next week. We have an excellent weekend next week with Shakur Stevenson, Oscar Valdez on ESPN, a unification at the 130-pound division, super featherweight, junior lightweight. That's going to be out there. The Serrano and Taylor undisputed women's match at I think that's at 130 pounds, or is that lightweight? That's lightweight. I'm sorry. 135-pound lightweight undisputed fight. Also on that card is Franchon Cruz against Dezurn-Cederoos. And this fight has been on hold for damn near 2 years, I think. It was supposed to be the, I want to say, co-main event or a chief support for Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos Jr. when that was going on Triller. And Teofimo Lopez had COVID or whatever. It was delayed a couple of times. Then Triller defaulted on the money or whatever. And then DAZN came back in the picture. DAZN, despite everything that is done with women's boxing, the Franchon Cruz Dezurn and Cederoos fight did not make it into that broadcast. But it's been out there. So I really appreciate the fact that they've kept this fight, that they've kept these two linked, although it took us 2 years or a year and a half to get it. But I think next weekend, I think it's going to be a pretty exciting fight. I know a lot of dudes don't F with women's boxing, but I think it's going to be a war. So, and my concern in the fight was, I thought Franchon Cruz, you know, she's a champion, maybe even a unified champion. I was a little concerned about her with this type of inactivity, with her being out of the ring this long. I was concerned about her gas tank, her cardio. And in earlier fights, you know, she's just not like a big mover or a real agile fighter. She's a brawler. She's a bruiser. And the one thing that I was looking at with Cederoos, who's also been inactive because of what I just talked about, but I think I've been watching Cederoos on Instagram, and she's a gym rat. I mean, or a gym warrior, however you want to look at it. She works her ass off. CrossFit. She does a lot of stuff. So I was impressed with Cederoos's preparation, and I was just hoping that Franchon would get her stuff together, because I think while Franchon might outbox Cederoos, she might be the better boxer. She might match Cederoos in power, or may even be more powerful. But I think what I was seeing was, I was very confident that Cederoos's her fitness is gonna allow her to weather a lot of Franchon's power. So I think it's gonna. I don't know if it goes the distance. In my opinion, Cederoos did throw one of the best punches that I've seen in women's boxing in the last several years, when she dropped Alicia Napoleon Espinosa. I don't know if you remember that fight from three and a half years ago or whatever, but she dropped she dropped Alicia 7th, 8th round or something, and just a beautiful shot, a real jarring shot. Really had Napoleon out on her feet for a good stretch. She wasn't able to put her away, but when we talk about women's boxing and the lack of power, that was one of the better punches that I've seen landed by any female. That's considering Savannah Marshall, some of the stuff I've seen from Senicia Estrada, even Amanda Serrano. That was one of the best punches that I've seen thrown and connected. So who knows who's the most powerful between the two? But like I said, I think it's going to be a war or a shootout of sorts. But the thing that Franchon Cruz Dezurn said in this interview was her business team, her manager, and who was Peter Kahn, who is famous for me in getting George Kambosos Jr. all the money that he got for that mandatory fight against Teofimo Lopez. Franchon just was very, she gave a lot of praise to her business team for giving her a world champion caliber training camp. And I've talked about this in the past on women's boxing. A lot of them are trying to compete on shoestring budgets or skeleton budgets. You know what I'm saying? They don't have all the resources that a lot of the men have. You know, everybody's not out here like what we see with Katie Taylor, maybe even Claressa Shields. A lot of women are out here working jobs. They're part-time professional fighters. And maybe that was contributing to the fitness problem that I thought I saw with Franchon. So I thought, for me, in going into this fight, leading up to this fight, I think it's great that she was able to get in a camp that was satisfying to her in terms of the preparation that she needs for this fight. Cederoos is probably 2 or 3 inches taller than Franchon. She's not as experienced as Franchon, but it's a pretty evenly matched fight in my opinion. The other thing that Franchon said is she intends to get through Elin Cederoos. She intends to win this fight, obviously, and then she's targeting a rematch with Claressa Shields. So And that would be an opportunity. So if Franchon wins this fight, she would be undisputed as super middleweight. If Claressa defeats Savannah Marshall whenever they meet up, she would be undisputed at middleweight. So I don't know if they meet in the middle, if Claressa would go back up to super middleweight where they met years ago on that the Andre Ward card. I don't know where they would do it at, but if they linked up and ran it back, I think that would be a good look for women's boxing as well, and continuing the streak or the theme of them doing all of these undisputed bouts. So that's something, you know, that's a little nugget dangling out there that we could potentially see a rematch between. And it was really unfair. That's how kind of backwards women's boxing is, or how down bad some aspects of women's boxing is. Here we have Franchon and Claressa Shields who meet in their debut fight. You know, and we sitting here now talking about when will Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis ever fight. And they're both, I think Boots has like 27, 28 wins, and Virgil Ortiz has maybe 18 or something. And we're sitting here waiting, like, when can they get together, realistically? Here it is in the women's game. Franchon and Claressa came out of the amateurs and fought each other fight one. The other thing, I just mentioned it. A note that Franchon Cruz mentioned in the interview was just she had a lot of respect for Peter Kahn, her manager, and his professionalism, and getting certain things that she thinks she deserves as a world champion. So shout out to her. You know, I say a lot of times, I believe a lot of these fighters go into fights with their business really bad or in bad shape. And I think those issues often pop up or surface in the fight. And you can't go into a sport like boxing with life shit on your mind. You know, you can't go in here and face a world-class opponent or a real professional, someone who's on top of their game, and get into the 8th, 9th, 10th round and the championship rounds and shit go well for you. You know, it's very rare that that many of these guys can do that. And so, like I said, Peter Kahn was instrumental in getting George Kambosos like $3 million. Probably, I don't know, 20 times his previous career high at that point. So Peter Kahn is about his business. We're very vocal about tearing down the non-fighter boxing figures who get over on the fighters, who do the fighters dirty, and who you know, take money, extort money from them, or get them into bad deals or whatever the hell. But we don't say a whole lot about individuals like Peter Kahn. But I hear good things about Peter Kahn. I've heard a couple of interviews from him. He seems to be a pretty solid dude. I've also talked about, and I'm gonna get ready to get off of here, but that's another thing with in looking at Conor Benn that I was talking about earlier. You know, looking at some of the comment sections, you know it goes down in the comment sections. You know boxing fans are wild as hell. But, you know, the narrative is becoming now that Conor Benn needs to step up and face a Virgil Ortiz or a Boots Ennis. And that might be cool from a fan perspective. And it might, you know, you might run out here with that thinking. But his manager, who you know, I don't know who it is. But between his manager, the combination of his manager and his promoter, they owe it to their client, Conor Benn, to steer him in a way that optimizes his success. And for all of these fighters, I'm fighter first. All of these fighters should benefit as best they can for the risk that they take. So I don't know how many more, you know, I don't know how many Chris Van Heerdens you know, he can fight and you know, guys who are past it or journeymen. I don't know how many more fights of those that a Conor Ben can get off, but it's definitely premature, in my opinion, to to put him over there with a Virgil Ortiz or a Boots Ennis. I think obviously when you look at the championship level in the welterweight division, where the belts are, how the business is so difficult right there, Ben is nowhere on the cusp of, and I didn't even realize the dude is in the top. I think I just heard he was in the top 5 of the sanctioning bodies, but he's not on the cusp of being a true contender, in my opinion. So it's just no rush to put him in those types of fights. The dude has virtually no amateur background, and I don't care what he's doing against these people that he, Algieri and Chris Van Heerden and Adrian Granados. You're not going to be that successful. You're not going to dominate. You're not going to walk down and do all the stuff that he's doing. You're not going to do that against Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis. So how they get him the right opposition to get him to expand his toolbox and sharpen up some things and to possibly be prepared for those types of guys, they got to be on top of their game and grooming a young dude. And he's supposed to be talking his shit. Fighters got to walk and chew gum at the same time. Like Mike Tyson said before the Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz fight. Nobody gives a shit about the guy who's standing over there being quiet. Fans typically want to see and hear from the dude who's over here talking the wildest shit. So for him to say what he's gonna do and what he is, and I'm eating everybody up and all that bullshit he talking, he's supposed to say that shit. You as the fan, you supposed to understand his resume, and the status of the last 5 to 7 opponents. You should know that shit. But like I said, I'm not in the UK. I'm not buying tickets to his fights. But I'm not going to hate on the guy because they're working on building his business and building his appeal. That's part of the game. Again, it's not like he's going to fight one more opponent and then he's going to get a shot at a vacant title against a very beatable, a very friendly opponent. If you're in contention at welterweight, you're going to have to fight a real dude. So he's got to get real dude ready. And he's really not there just yet. That's my take on it. So anyway, like I said, shout out to Franchon Cruz Dezurn. I really want to see that fight next week. I mentioned it earlier. I'm in between my DAZN subscription and this Conor Ben fight. I did not re-up my my monthly subscription for that card. Next week, probably Thursday or Friday, I'll go on and put down another $19.99 so I can watch this card with Taylor Serrano, Dezurn-Cederoos. I can't think of who else is on there. It was another fight on there I wanted to see. But I'll go on and re-up for that. And then what I mentioned also earlier is I want to see what's going on. If they can, I doubt it gets done in time, but if they let me know what's going on with the Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk rematch, if that happens in July, so let me see, that'll be April, May, June, July. That's 4 months. I probably won't do the DAZN is on something where, like, if you're gonna do 2 months of DAZN, if you happen to do definitely 3 months of DAZN, well then you might as well do the annual plan and just pay the $99 and get all the get all 12 months and then deal with whatever bullshit months they have. Especially as everything is going to pay-per-view, that's kind of the decision that you have to make. You either gonna pay 4 months at $20 a pop, or you look at the calendar and see what's going on and you just take the hit all at once and pay $99. That's kind of where you are with that shit. Whether you like DAZN, hate DAZN, whether you hate Mannix, whether you hate Sergio Moore, whether you hate apps, whatever, we can talk about all of that, but at the end of the day, you got to make up your mind on how you're going to waste your money. That's how it goes. So that's it. Fury-Whyte. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You know, maybe, you know, White not participating in the in the press conferences and whatnot, and some of the different, Eddie Hearn not being able to, or maybe not being able to attend the fight or something. You know, all of these little side stories that came out. We get to fight this weekend. So let me get on out of here, man. Bite down boxing. Don't let them count you out. Pay me no mind, sports, and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.